Welcome to RevMD Sex Bites podcast with me, your host, Dr. Deborah Durst, and my co-host.
Hey guys, Farideh Golombiewski, nurse practitioner here at RevitalyzeMD. And today's part 2, right? As we continue this journey of sexual energy.
And we're still in January. Go figure. So we did female sexual energy. Now we're going to talk a little bit about male sexual energy. And again, we're coming at it from more of, well, as scientific as you can get. Maybe eventually having some men and women on to kind of talk about this in a little more depth would be nice. And so we're talking about like sexual energy, again, law of attraction. You can attract things if you're thinking about them. Everything has a vibratory energy. So everything in the world is energy based, right? And this is no different.
Nope. And there is masculine and feminine energy, and it exists within all of us, men and women. Even men have some feminine sexual energy and then have some masculine energy as well. It's just that balance, that yin and yang.
And I think that is important to recognize. And I think a lot of people just don't understand that concept of male and female sexual, or not even just energy in general. So like, again, men are more competitive and driven and strong and and that's how that energy comes across, right? Even for women that are, again, successful or driven or strong, maybe less emotional, at least visibly in everyday life. That's the masculine energy, even in women, but that's really what's considered masculine energy. Then the feminine energy, again, is more or less,
the loving, the caring, the nurturing, the compassion.
Yeah. And so I think that we all have a feminine and masculine, and some are predominantly one or the other, but having a balance of both is really where you want to be. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about for men. So if everything's energy based, again, masculine energy and sexual energy more specifically is going to be your life force. So everything that you take out into the world. So let's talk about that a little bit from a sexual energy standpoint.
So as we go in and we learn more about these energies and we're kind of deep diving in.
And Farideh's doing it reluctantly, but she's doing it.
Hey, I'm doing it. I'm all in. I mean,
yeah.
I'm getting there.
You sounded like an artist and poet leading up to this podcast.
Well, once it kind of gets a little bit more in depth, I do all right. Some of the surface stuff, I'm like, yeah, okay, move on.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and this one is tough because we, again, if you're in control of your sexual energy, so if energy's in the body and you're present in the moment, and so even from a sex standpoint and men, if men aren't thinking about performance or wondering how they're doing or whether they can last or whether they can hold it,
or thinking about the end game.
Yeah. Or thinking about the end game where the goal is, orgasm. So if you're not thinking too far ahead or too in your head with it, then instead you're in the present moment. And so you're going to basically enhance that energy that is forming inside the body. And so you actually had a pretty good description of male and sexual energy, water and fire.
Oh, yeah. So, see,
I know
when we start reading and we get into some of these blogs, into some of these experts, it makes a little bit more sense and how some things are presented sometimes.
And I liked this presentation of it.
This one blogger had mentioned how masculine sexual energy is more like fire, right? It comes on quick, it burns bright, but it burns and goes out pretty quickly. Where female sexual energy is more like water. It's slow to boil. But once it boils, we boil and boil and boil. So for men, they come on strong. It's that libido. It's that immediate. For women, we need to be warmed up, guys. We need a little bit more. But once you get us going, we're good. So that makes sense to me, that quick fire versus that slower heat.
And then again, if we're talking about the sexual response, so if there's like a desire, arousal or response, men are more the desire.
Yep, on that front end.
And women are more the response. And so, it just, again, women do need a little more time to get there. And I think the more that men just get more comfortable in the whole act without being in the head too much or being focused on the end game,
Exactly.
the better that connection and the deeper that connection can be.
Exactly. Where, like you were saying, men is that desire phase, women is that response phase. So in that same blog, though, it did bring up women that have a little bit more of that masculine energy and what that means. So it doesn't mean that women can't be more of that fire, right? Some of us women have some of that fire, and that's okay. But we have a little bit more of that masculine energy where it's there and it's quicker to kind of boil and get excited than others. But usually that's because within that relationship, it's kind of on that slow simmer always. It's that female is getting what she needs consistently throughout a relationship to be able to ignite a little bit faster and have that desire a little bit more. So we kind of get into some of that, and this is where the energy, where it's like, how much is relationship and how much is energy and how much of it is life, creativity, like it kind of goes all over.
Well, I think that it is all of the above. I think that relationships play a key role because you can have very feminine men with very masculine energy women. And so as long as that's a good balance and they can strike that balance with each other, then that's when that connection and, and the authentic connection will really happen and it'll be deeper. So yeah, I think it really depends on the relationship because, I think that if you had two more like a masculine type woman, at least a lot of masculine energy, and then a really masculine man, would that work very well? They would definitely have
burns bright and dies just as quickly, right?
Yeah, it may be difficult. So who knows? But I think yes, it does depend on, the relationship for sure. But I think that's what develops, and that's what's key here is like whatever it is, figuring it out so that you are balancing your needs so that you can bring that sexual energy into the world. So, and again, if you are not in your head about things and not in your genitals about things, so end game versus head and performance, then you're going to enhance that energy and that goes out into the world so that's your life force. That's you living your passion and mission and all of that.
So when you're present in your desire, you're realizing your true needs, seeking those true needs, receiving those true needs, right? So
able to communicate on a deeper level, understand things on a deeper level, all of that. So
absolutely. And what's really interesting is when we were talking about sexual energy and exotic energy and this masculine, feminine energy, when I'm doing the research and we're looking at all of this for this podcast, it talks about how those energies relate even outside of the bedroom. That of course, there's that intimacy with sexual energy and exotic energy, but it also is just overall passion and work and creativity. So it's all aspects of life, not just the bedroom, which is really interesting because when I hear sexual energy, I think fun time, playtime, right?
Yeah.
I don't think outside of the bedroom. I think bedroom, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to kind of I start reading about that and I'm like, okay, now I can see how this really does relate into the whole being.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the key of what we're on the journey for in 2023 is to understand it more deeply so that we know that there's a whole lot of sexual energy that you can radiate out into the world. And so again, I think that people are able to pick up on that. And so if yours is enhanced, then you're going to actually, be seeing that return to you as you're interacting in daily life. So you're going to get things you want. You're going to feel more, passionate and driven about what you do, but you're also going to get that return. Everyone else feels it too. So you can definitely feel a very masculine energy from somebody or a very feminine energy. And so, those people that have that strong sexual energy, you definitely can feel it. And so I think they can see it in responses from people. So if you're balancing both of them, I think we all have masculine and feminine, and balancing that is probably going to be where it is for most people.
It is, I think it is that yin and yang, that equal, that finding that happy balance for you. Now, does that balance mean that you're more one side than the other? That's your balance. That's fine. That's totally appropriate. But it is when we're talking about that power, that potential that's underlying that we're not accessing if we're not having these discussions and open to these energies.
Well, and I think, and at the very end, I think we can give a more direct personal opinion on, some of it, because I do have some opinions that might relate, because we're kind of being, fair and open to everything. But I think that there are things that most women would probably want. And so for men to know that and master their performance overall in the bedroom and connection and authentic, deep connections, then knowing that's important. But I think, again, also, so you're balancing the masculine and feminine, you're not in your head, you're not in your genitals about it. You have that, grounded ability to, perceive from others and understand things better, communicate more clearly, communicate deep emotions more clearly, be vulnerable. Like, again, I think that radiates out into the world in other ways. So,
and we were talking a little bit about how, all aspects of life. So understanding your true self, your true wants, allowing that to translate into your passions, whatever those main passions may be.
And being able to communicate it directly. And so I think that I do believe, and this is what we're kind of looking into. And again, if there's anyone that has more specific, information, experience, and want to come on to the podcast and talk
and educate us,
educate everyone that listens. So again, I think that there's an energy that can be also basically depleted, right? So if you're with lots of different people and it's meaningless and there's no real true connection, that perhaps you have so much energy and you're depleting it instead of enhancing it. And I think
then how do we recharge?
I think it's
right. Do we recharge energy? Is that like if it depletes, so it's got to have a recharge, right?
It's got to have a balance. Definitely is not a depleted for good. But I feel like that's one of the reasons we're looking into this. We do a lot of medical based procedures, but what we want to do is be able to extend that to some energetic type, offerings that we can do, because I think we can do everything medical, but some people, women or men, may still be
can make everything work
responsive. Yes.
But if we're not in the moment, it doesn't matter if it works.
Or if like you've numbed to things that don't matter. So sometimes taking time again to figure out yourself, what you want, and then finding that deeper connection instead of just having meaningless connections might work. And so I think that's what we're exploring in 2023 is what we think about it. What's the science that we see with it? Is there science with it?
What does it mean? How does it help our patients? How do we tap into this?
I just think there's something there and we're learning more and more about it. But I do feel like there is such a thing as the energy source. And if you're depleting it in the wrong ways, and then suddenly women do lose orgasmic strength as they get older, and even if we turn that physically, and even for men. So we do a lot of male sexual wellness, but if we get them to the point where they're still anxious in the bedroom and have hangups or too in their head or too worried about the end game, then there may be other things that are needed as well.
Or grounding within that energy can give you back some of that confidence.
Like, again, if you can enhance your sexual energy, you enhance like your ability to live your passion, to follow dreams, tap into creativity, your deepest emotions, vulnerability, ability to express with other people. Society does tend to cut us off from that because you're not allowed to talk about sex a lot.
Because it's so taboo. Even in 2023, it's becoming less taboo, thankfully, but
more confusing.
Well,
and so
that's another podcast, guys.
That's another podcast. It doesn't absolutely have to be confusing for everybody, but whoever chooses to have it a little more diverse and confusing, that's fine. Like, again, it's okay. Whatever you want to do is okay. We're talking about mainly kind of what's been termed masculine and feminine all along, and that can happen with both men and women. So my thought is, in general, for men, is I think you bring up an important point about us being the slow boil over time. It does take us a little bit longer. 99% of sex for women is in the head. And so if you can get into the head and connect with them emotionally and mentally, then your sex game is going to be very good. And I think that most women, even if they have masculine energy and traits in life because they're driven, they're successful, they're independent, they're taking care of their family. They still want to be feminine in the bedroom. So the more that you can bring that out, the better it is for you. They want you to kind of take control and to be in charge most of the time. I would say that's almost across the board, even for very energetically
even
masculine,
very strong women.
Yes.
Strong women. Absolutely.
Yeah. They want that balance.
Well, who doesn't want balance?
I know, right?
In and out of the bedroom. We did a podcast on the response cycle, the sexual response cycle, and it goes into the more medical side of what happens when men get excited and women get excited. So if we're talking about energy as well, and we're talking about this slow burn, it makes sense when you take it back to that response cycle. All of the things that happen to women to get to an orgasm, medically, they take time, they need input. They need sensory. We need a little bit more.
That was just a start. That we were just touching base with the masculine side, and we're going to get more into it each time. Again, if you have any experience, any feedback, any things specific you want to add and come on to the podcast,
or want to join us,
we would love that. So let us know. Again, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and make sure you tune in, and then you'll get alerts as to future podcasts. Because remember, we're here to revitalize your look, your health, and your sex life.
Thank you.